This is Shelton, Nebraska. When we stopped at the gas station, I asked the man what the population is. He said, oh, about 1,040 some odd. Said it's the 40 some odd ones who make things interesting around here. We came here to pay a visit to the local newspaper editor. Like a lot of small-town editors, Douglas Duncan does all the jobs around here. He runs the press and sells ads and helps his wife, Jerry, with the layout. But what brings us to his office is something Doug Duncan wrote and published in the Shelton Clipper, an index to the American small town, which is amusing because it's so true. You know you're in a small town when?
You know you're in a small town when 3rd Street's on the edge of town.
I noticed 1st Street's pretty nearly
yes,
the edge of town.
Yes, it is here. 3rd Street makes us sound a little larger, though. We kind of like to sound big. You know you're in a small town when you don't use turn signals because everybody knows where you're going. You know you're in a small town if you were born on June 13th and your family received gifts from the local merchants because you're the first baby of the year. You know you're in a small town if you speak to each dog you pass by name and he wags at you. You know you're in a small town if you dial the wrong number and talk for 15 minutes anyway. You know you're in a small town if you can't walk for exercise because every car that passes you offers you a ride. I think of a retired grocer here in town who'd had heart surgery. We almost killed that fellow with kindness. He was supposed to walk several miles a day and build his heart muscle back up, and every car that went past tried to load old Ralph into the car and give him a ride back home. He's a nice guy, and we almost killed him. You know you're in a small town when the biggest business in town sells farm machinery. You know you're in a small town if you write a check on the wrong bank and it covers it for you anyway.
Could that really happen?
It could if we had 2 banks. You know you're in a small town if you miss church on Sunday and the preacher sends you a get well card. You know you're in a small town if someone asks you how you feel and spends the time to listen to what you have to say. Now that says a lot about a small town. We care about each other, and when somebody asks you a question like that, it's because they care. They're not trying to make idle conversation. I thank God for small towns and the people that live in them. It's more than a fact. It's a way of life. It's America as far as I'm concerned.
Doug Duncan knows his small towns all right. He knows this one anyway. It seems a fine one to me. The strength of the country doesn't come from New York and Los Angeles and Chicago only, of course. It also comes from Shelton, Nebraska. Population 1,040 some odd. If you tried to put your finger on the center of a map of America, it might come down right here. And right here, we end our journey for this summer. Before we leave you, I'd like to read you something I've been carrying around on the bus and in my head. It comes from the trusty paperback Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass. And it fairly describes the country we've seen this summer. The United States themselves are essentially the greatest poem. Other states indicate themselves in their deputies, but the genius of the United States is not best or most in its executives or legislatures, nor in its ambassadors or authors or colleges or churches or parlors, nor even in its newspapers or inventors, but always most in the common people. Their manners, speech, dress, friendships, the freshness and candor of their physiognomy, the picturesque looseness of their carriage, their deathless attachment to freedom, their aversion to anything indecorous or soft or mean, the practical acknowledgement of the citizens of one state by the citizens of all other states, the fierceness of their roused resentment, their curiosity and welcome of novelty, their self-esteem and wonderful sympathy, the air they have of persons who never knew how it felt to stand in the presence of superiors, the fluency of their speech, their delight in music, the sure symptom of manly tenderness, and native elegance of soul. Their good temper and open-handedness, the terrible significance of their elections, the president's taking off his hat to them, not they to him. These too are unrhymed poetry. It awaits the gigantic and generous treatment worthy of it. Good night.
All these years I've been a-wandering, just when I think I'm near the end, I always see the road is bending, and I wonder what's around